chapter 16 in the Saga of Ragnar Lothbrok. Now, it is told that the sons of Ragnar returned to Denmark before King Aila's messengers came, and they rested there with their troops. But the messengers soon arrived with their own followers at a time when the Ragnarsons were holding a feast. The messengers went into the hall where they were drinking and stood before the throne where Ivar was sitting. Sigurd, Hvitserk the Bold were sitting and playing Hanafatal, while Björn Ironside sat on the floor where he was shaving a spear shaft smooth. When Aila's messengers came before Ivar, they greeted him formally. He received their greeting and asked them where they had come from and what sort of news they might have to tell. The foremost among the messengers said that they were Englishmen and that King Aila had sent them to tell the news of the death of Ragnar, their father. Hvitserk and Sigurd stopped in the middle of their game and listened carefully to hear the news. Bjorn stood up from the floor and leaned on his spear. Ivar asked the messengers carefully about every detail of how Ragnar had lost his life. They told him everything that had happened from the time when Ragnar came to England to the moment when he died. And when they were finished telling the story, with the last words Ragnar had spoken, how the piglets would squeal, Bjorn slid his hand down the spear shaft, and he had been gripping it so hard that the marks from his finger grips remained. And at the moment the messengers finished their story, Bjorn shook his spear so hard that it broke in two. Meanwhile, Hvitserk was holding a game piece he had captured, and he squeezed it so hard that blood gushed out from under every fingernail. Sigurd had been using a knife to trim his fingernails while the story was told. He listened so intently that he did not notice he was cutting himself with it until it sliced all the way to the bone. But he did not show any sign that he felt it. Ivar asked for every detail, and his face turned sometimes red, sometimes blue, sometimes pale, and he was so swollen that all his flesh seemed inflated from the grimness in his heart. Hvitserk spoke up now and said their vengeance should begin immediately with the killing of King Aila's messengers. Ivar replied, "That won't happen. They will leave here in peace and go wherever they please, and if they lack anything they need, they can tell me, and I will get it for them." When the messengers had completed their errand, they left the hall and returned to their ship, and when the wind was in their favour, they sailed away and had a good voyage until they came back to King Aila and told him how each of Ragnar's sons had reacted to hearing this news told. When King Aila heard this, he said, "I expect we need to fear either Ivar or none of them, based on what you have told me about him. The others have brave hearts, but we could hold our kingdom against them." He ordered watchmen to be posted all over his kingdom so that no invading army could surprise him. Meanwhile, when King Aila's messengers were gone, the Ragnarsons met for a conference to discuss how they might avenge their father, Ragnar. Ivar said, "I will have no part in this, and I will contribute no soldiers, because what happened to Ragnar was what I expected. From the beginning he was badly unprepared for what he undertook to do. He had no quarrel with King Aila, and it has often happened that a man who is too proud and deals unrighteously with others is brought down shamefully. I will accept money in compensation for our father from King Aila, if he will offer it to me." His brothers were furious when they heard this and said they would never let themselves be disgraced in this way, even if Ivar did. And many men would say that we didn't know how to act rightly if we left our father's death unavenged, considering that we have gone raiding all around the world and killed many a men without cause. No, that shall not be. We will prepare every seaworthy ship in Denmark and gather such a great army that every man who can take up a shield against King Aila will go with us." But Ivar said that he would stay out of it together with all the ships that he had command over, except the one I call my own. When it became known that Ivar would give no aid to this expedition, they were able to gather a much smaller army than otherwise, but in spite of this, they did not hesitate to set out, and when they reached England, King Aila heard of their arrival and ordered the trumpet blown to summon everyone who would follow him. He gathered such a large army that no one could count their number, and he marched against the Ragnarsons. The two armies met, and Ivar was not present for that battle. The confrontation ended with the Ragnarsons driven away, and King Aila took the victory. And while the king was driving that army away, Ivar said that he had no intent of going back to his own land, and I will see whether King Aila will do me some honour or not, and I think it would be better to accept payment from him than continue with such failed expeditions like the one we've just been on. Fitzurk said he would have nothing to do with him and that Ivar could do whatever he wanted for his part, but we will never accept payment from him for our father. Ivar told him they would say farewell with that said, and he asked the others to rule their shared kingdom, and you must send me the amount of money that I determine. And when he had told them this, he said farewell, and he turned back to meet King Aila. When Ivar came before King Aila, he greeted the king respectfully and began his speech in this way. I have come to meet with you, and I want to make a settlement with you and accept whatever honours you will give me. I see now that I have no reason to fight against you, and I think it's better to accept whatever honours you want to give me than risk the death of more of my men or of my own self. King Aila answered, Some people say that it's impossible to trust you, that you often speak well when you intend to break your word. It is difficult for me to believe you or your brothers. I will ask you for only very little, if you will grant my request, and I will swear to you in turn that I will never stand against you. King Aila asked him what he wanted in payment. I want, said Ivar, for you to give me only as much of your own land as a bull hide will cover, though outside of that I will be permitted to lay a building's foundation as well. I will not ask for more from you, and if you will not grant this request, I will think you want to give me no honour whatsoever. Aila said, I don't know whether this will harm me in some way, if you take this piece from my land, but I will certainly give it to you if you will swear not to fight against me. I do not fear your brothers as long as you are true to me.